I'm Jeff Matlow. Welcome to the best leadership podcast ever. Let's talk about complacency and how to avoid it. Because America's largest companies have a big problem. They've got a disappearing problem. More than half of the Fortune 500 companies in the year 2000 are no longer around. And only 10% of the companies from 1955's Fortune 500 are still on the list today. Only 10%. 90% of those so-called successful companies either went bankrupt, were acquired, or otherwise ceased to exist. Being on the Fortune 500 means you're a successful company, right? So tell me, why are they disappearing faster than an origami sailboat in the Bermuda Triangle? So it turns out, I know the answer. As it also turns out, the answer is pretty essential to the way you live your life. But first, before we get there, I need to talk to you about Norman Lloyd. Norman Lloyd was born in 1914 to a pretty average family. His father was a furniture salesman, his mother was a housewife. He had two sisters, but they play absolutely no part in the story, so I'm not sure why I'm even mentioning them. However, I said it, and there are no backsies. Norman liked performing. And by 1923, when he was 9 years old, he had appeared in vaudeville and other assorted places, and that marked his official beginning as a professional actor. By the time Norm turned 21, he was cast in his first Broadway play. Then, at the ripe old age of 28 years old, Norman met this chap named Alfred Hitchcock. Maybe you've heard of him. The two of them began a long professional association. Next thing he knew, Norman started getting cast in more films. He worked with Charlie Chaplin and Orson Welles and Elia Kazan and a whole bunch of others. It's pretty neat for a kid of a furniture salesman, right? Well, that's not why I told you the story. In fact, the story isn't even done. Norman kept working and working and working, and he didn't stop. He became a producer. He was a director. He worked in theater, film, TV, and radio. And he acted in projects as diverse as Dead Poets Society, St. Elsewhere, Twilight Zone, and Star Trek. In fact, the last film he appeared in, he was 99 years old. Norman died in 2021 at the age of 106. Why is this important for you to know? Because Norman Lloyd's career lasted almost a century. He had the longest professional career in entertainment, longer than anyone else in history by far. And this brings us right back to the Fortune 500. There's a problem with success. Success feels good. You know what? Success feels great. But that's not the problem. After all, we want to achieve success, right? I mean, isn't that the objective? We set goals for ourselves, and when we reach those goals, that's the definition of success. Achieving your goals feels awesome. The bigger and more audacious your goals, the more awesome the feeling is when you achieve them. That's kind of what these Fortune 500 companies felt when they achieved unparalleled success. They got to the top of the mountain, and that was their problem. The bigger your success, the more proud you are of it. It's natural to stand at the top of the mountain, wave your arms in joy and excitement so everybody sees what you've done. You've accomplished big things. You've done it. You've climbed the mountain, and now you're at the top. It's that feeling of standing on top of the world that often filters away a lot of the attributes that led you to success in the first place. When you become the best, it's easy to think that all the things you did to achieve success are the same things you should do to maintain it. And that's wrong. Very wrong. That type of thinking is what causes large companies to fail. In the insightful words of Intel billionaire Andy Grove, success breeds complacency, and complacency breeds failure. Being complacent means believing that no matter what you do, you'll remain king of the mountain. It means believing that the things that got you this far will build you further, but they won't. No matter how big you are, no matter how long you're standing in the top spot, a whole lot of other people are going to be laser focused on taking you down. And if you don't pay attention, they're going to succeed. Just ask 90% of the Fortune 500 companies from 1955 about that. Here's the one thing you need to do in order to not stay complacent. Be like Norman Lloyd. If you want to know how to keep moving forward, it's best to study the person who moved forward the longest. Norman reached a peak when he started being cast in Broadway plays. After all, that's the pinnacle for a lot of people. Just not Norman. He reached that peak, then he reinvented himself. Norman began acting in movies, and he reached another peak when he started working with Alfred Hitchcock and Charlie Chaplin. And that would be the pinnacle for many people, just not Norman. He reached that peak, then reinvented himself. He began directing and producing. He then moved to radio and then TV and on and on and on. You see, the greatest, longest-lasting companies are the ones that continually reinvent themselves and continually reach larger peaks. There is no summit of the mountain. There is no finish line. There are only new plateaus and new opportunities to reinvent yourself. A lot of companies have done really crappy jobs at that. Kodak failed, Sears failed, Radio Shack failed. They became successful, they became complacent, they failed. What does this have to do with you? Let's talk about that. It's so easy to get caught up in the humdrum murmur of everyday life. It's easy to succumb to complacency. I bet you had some big goals before. Maybe you achieved them, maybe you didn't. The question is, have you become complacent in your life? Are you still working towards achieving new goals? Or do you feel velcroed to the mundane? Sure, you can break through, but it feels like it requires too much effort. Here's the problem. Regrets are born out of complacency. And I don't want you to have regrets. I like you too much. So let me tell you what I do every year, and sometimes have my coaching clients do too. Heck, maybe you want to as well. This doesn't have an official name, but I call it My Goals because, that's kind of catchy. So here's what you need to do. Open up a Word doc or Notion or Evernote or whatever you use to make notes. Heck, use a chisel and a stone if you want. I really don't care. You're going to write each of the following 4 questions down, and then you're going to answer each one in just 2 or 3 sentences. You ready? First question is, what is your main goal? Now, your main goal could be something like, I want to weigh 140 pounds. I want to be a vice president. The second question, why do you want to achieve that goal? For instance, I want to feel energized and focused, or I want to feel positive about myself. The third question is, how do you plan to achieve that goal? For instance, I will exercise for at least 20 minutes a day, 5 days per week. Now imagine you've accomplished the goal. How do you feel? For instance, I feel confident in my ability to achieve my goals. I feel great about my body and my mind. I feel like I can accomplish anything I set my mind to. Again, the 4 questions. What is your main goal? Why do you want to achieve that goal? How do you plan to achieve the goal? And imagine you've accomplished the goal already. How do you feel? Great. Now, when you finish answering all 4 of those questions, then merge all your answers together in a statement that's from the perspective of as if you've already achieved the goal. Here's what it may look like. I weigh 140 pounds. I feel fit and healthy. I feel energized and focused. I feel positive about myself. I exercise for at least 20 minutes each day, 5 days per week. I am mindful of what I eat. I feel confident in my ability to achieve my goals. I feel great about my body and my mind. I feel like I can accomplish anything I set my mind to. I am happy and successful. Now print your statement out. Put it by your bedside. Put it by your desk. Read it every morning when you wake up. Read it every night before you go to sleep, and maybe once or twice a day. Simply visualizing your goal and your steps to get there becomes a powerful process to challenge the gravity of complacency. Seriously, it's a little thing, but it goes a long, long way. I do this, and it has transformed the way I view my days. Be intentional of what you're doing and why you're doing it. 90% of Fortune 500 companies lost their dreams, and I don't want you to. It's time for you to be the 10%. It's time for you to be Norman Lloyd. Success is a decision, and the decision is yours. Listen, I'm a leadership coach for executives and entrepreneurs of growth stage companies. If you want some help here, reach out to me. You can contact me at bytitleonly.com. If you like this, please click subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend who can get some value out of it. My name's Jeff Matlow. This is the best leadership podcast ever. I'll talk to you next time.